Hi, Paul from Bitonto Pizza. I spent 3 years planning and researching a DIY pizza oven build. I spent a lot of my research time in YouTube videos. Some of them are done extremely well, others not so well, and some have maybe some little areas of improvement that can be involved. So today I'm going to rate the DIY oven videos available on YouTube for you. This first video by Shawn Noffsinger was one that inspired me and helped me get to planning and discovering all the things that I might need to do for my own pizza oven build. I hope it's as inspiring to you as it was to me.
Bags of cutting the rebar to fit in there. Once it's cut, then I started to pour after I raised the rebar, figuring out where the low spots were, filling it in block base for the dome. And once I have the base, this is where I took some angle iron, filling every other hole with concrete to make the stand nice and sturdy. And I went through another 20 bags of cement here, trying to fit this piece I did on the bottom, putting the rebar in there. I went through cement, but this is the first step of the dome. And
Shawn does an amazing job here of creating a really solid base. Concrete, he took care of the hydrology in the bottom, by adding sand, etc., under the concrete slab. The rebar in between the center blocks, he used 1/4-inch steel angle to create sort of a, the arch of the opening. Incredible A+ job.
Put on top of the cement, and this is where the brick floor lays. I had to get a diamond blade for my chop saw around. You can see I'm dry fitting in there just to make sure that I got the spacing right. Once I got the spacing right, then I went back and added mortar and completed the arch. This is where I decided to bring.
So far, Shawn's done an incredible job. He's done so many things right. Underneath his base of his floor, you'll notice that he used essentially an insulating board. He looks like he's got about 2.5 inches of insulating board, and that's exactly what you want. Otherwise, the top of his hearth or this stand beneath him would get too hot and would eventually crack and fail on him. The other thing you'll notice is that he did not lay the bricks out so that they're side by side like this. He actually did more of a staggered load like this. When I was designing my own oven, I designed it with a herringbone pattern, and the reason you want to do that is you want to avoid an X intersection where you have the areas between the bricks. That X intersection creates little points that the pizza can get cut on, and you can easily get a hole in your pizza. So you would eventually have to grind those down. But by staggering those, you don't get those 4-point little peaks in the brick. And so this is a fantastic job. It looks like he's following the Pompeii oven from Forno Bravo almost to the letter here. So great job.
So yeah, I just worked my way. And without that tool, I don't think I would have done this nearly as easily as I did.
At this point, Shawn is using what's called the indispensable tool, which is essentially a piece of wood with a swivel on it, and it helps you line up your bricks when you're building a brick dome. It won't get you all the way there, as we'll see a little bit later in this video, but that brick tool is really incredible. One of the problems, however, with that simple brick tool is that you're going to be building essentially a half-circle dome from the center of your oven. So if your oven is, say, 1 meter wide, then the top of that oven is going to be a 1/2 meter high, and that's pretty high. If you're wanting to cook Neapolitan pizza, you really want to build more of a flattened dome. So this is just one choice. This will work better for like baking breads and other things, so it might be a little bit more versatile oven. But for the pizzaiolo, this oven's going to have a little bit too high of an arch to it, and that dome's going to be a little too high in the end. At this point, Shawn hits a really critical point in the construction of the oven, and that is essentially merging the shape of the dome, which is circular, and the arch, which is also circular, but it's more of a cylinder shape. So he's got a sphere and a cylinder that he's combining, and This is where you're going to make a lot of intricate cuts if you're making your oven out of brick alone. For those using concrete and actually pouring their oven, this shape is a little bit easier to deal with. You just make a form and it goes right over the form.
That point right there, I had to make some weird shaped bricks to kind of fit around the chimney, but also fit on top of that bridge side there holding up the bricks. And each level had its own small brick that I had to fit in place. And
what you notice at this point is there's a lot of cement being used, and there's a lot of cement being used to fill the cracks between the bricks. That's not ideal for the oven because as the bricks expand and contract, which they will, even though they're refractory bricks, they're going to expand and contract, and you can get little dust and little pieces of that cement falling off, and you don't want that to get in your pizza. This is why a lot of pizzaioli prefer that they cast the oven, the shape of the oven, out of refractory concrete ahead of time, and they don't have any mortar or cement between the pieces so that it doesn't fall into the pizza and cause a problem.
And that's the final brick there. Once I had it in place, there's a curing fire, so I put that in there to kind of cure the oven. The oven takes a good 4 or 5 good curing fires before you can really get it up to high temperature. And at this point, I had put a 2-inch insulating fiberglass mat over the whole thing, covered it with chicken wire, and I'm covering it with a refractory mortar afterwards. But here are a couple pictures of the stucco, the paint, and a picture or two of the first pizzas that we made in this oven.
I think you'll agree that Shawn did an incredible job with this oven. It looks like in the video he didn't add the final covering out, but he made an oven that's really strong. It's going to have good thermal mass, but also good insulation, so it should be relatively efficient. The only problem he's going to have with this oven is going to be the height of the dome, and then the secondary is the height of the opening a little high. So it's not going to be as efficient as it could be, and it's not going to be the best for making Neapolitan pizza. But any other style, Roman style, Bari style, New York style, pretty much any other type of pizza is going to be ideal for that. I hope you're as inspired as I was with Shawn's video. It was one of the things that got me on the road to getting my own oven in the first place. So thanks very much, Shawn. Great job. I hope a lot more people watch this and build their own pizza ovens and start making great pizza at home. In this next video, we're going to see kind of a rudimentary pizza oven build, which I would say is by someone who maybe hasn't really studied making pizza, or Neapolitan pizza at least, for very long, and is not really sure how to build this oven. I think it's a very easy DIY to follow, but we're going to see immediately that there are some really important problems with this oven build.
Jason and I are going to show you how to build a backyard pizza oven. If you love making pizzas, then this project is for you.
Not only is this a totally doable DIY, but a pretty sweet thing to have in your backyard.
The first thing you want to do is figure out where you're going to put your pizza oven. Location is very important, and here are a few things to consider. This is going to be a permanent installation, so plan accordingly.
Install your oven on sturdy, level ground. You may have to create your own foundation. You want the oven to have at least 3 feet of clearance on all sides. Consider a location that's easily accessible to your dining and entertaining area.
So let's talk about this first planning principle. The foundation advice is incredibly solid. Have a good foundation. You may have to build one. The second one is location. They mentioned 3 feet on each side. However, if you're going to be within code, which you should be when you're building a pizza oven in your backyard, you need to be at least 10 feet from any structure. That includes the fence and the house. And if you're within 10 feet of a home structure or any sort of roof, even if it's an awning, a covered patio, anything like that, then your chimney actually has to be higher than that structure.
We're building a 3-foot by 3-foot base to accommodate for our 34-inch oven.
We're going for a wood-fired design built from both bricks and pavers. It will have a dome-shaped oven, and we'll even create a spot for firewood storage in the base.
Not only is this oven going to be functional, it's going to look great too. We're going to do a dry run with our first course to see how our lamp goes. The base is going to be a 3 by 3. Each one of our blocks is 12 inches.
We're creating our base out of concrete pavers.
We're gonna have to make a few cuts.
To cut our pavers, we're first using a speed square to mark our measurements. Then taking an angle grinder to score the paver on each side, cutting about a 1/4 inch. Once scored, we'll use a chisel to finish the job.
Making sure that we're both level and square on our first course for our base is the most important step.
So what we don't want is our joints to line up.
For building the base, this is actually very solid advice. You want it level, you want it square, you don't want your joints to line up. And it looks like they're not going to be putting any cement in here because this oven really is not going to be as heavy as a full-on pizza oven. So this one's going to be relatively lightweight. This should be okay with the base that they've provided here. Otherwise, they would need to do something much more robust.
When I'm laying my glue down, I'm keeping it in towards the middle a little bit more, just so we're not getting any squeeze out of it. All right, we've got our desired height. We're going to check our level here.
And if you haven't caught on already, our theme of the day is make sure everything is level.
All right, we're ready for our capstone.
Our next step is to set the capstone.
I did a little research on this, and they're using that Loctite Landscaper gel to put everything together, but it's only rated to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just not sure I'd want it that close to my fire.
So we're going to start with the fire brick, which is going to be used for the floor, where hot coals make direct contact with the brick.
We're talking about fire brick, which is exactly what they're going to need under the oven, but it looks like they're putting this fire brick directly on the capstone, and I don't know what the capstone is made of, but it doesn't look like it's made of refractory cement or actually any sort of refractory material, which is going to be a problem because that base is going to heat up pretty hot. It's not going to get as hot as like an actual pizza oven would, but it's going to be pretty hot, and it could cause that base to crack. So I would be a little bit worried about that particular part of the construction over the long term.
For this, we're using clay brick, which will go around the perimeter of the fire brick.
It's a good idea to first lay out and dry fit your pattern.
Traditional pizza ovens have a herringbone floor, so that's the design we're going to do.
So they get extra points for mentioning the herringbone pattern. That's definitely what you want, is the herringbone pattern for the floor. And I mentioned before why that is.
We're using high heat mortar suitable for ovens. We're mixing our mortar with water, following manufacturer's guidelines for ratios. For this application, we want our mortar to have a consistency of a milkshake.
Using a 10-inch brick trowel, we're applying a thin layer on the underside of the fire brick. We don't want to raise the height of the brick with the mortar, so just a thin layer will do the trick. Any mortar spills or drips onto the face of the brick can be easily cleaned up by using a damp sponge.
To make any cuts, we're again using an angle grinder.
Once we get this brick laid, we're going to wait 24 hours for it to set, and then we're going to start our dome. The reason you see the dome shape for most pizza ovens is science. It's an efficient design for cooking, mainly as it radiates the heat evenly from above.
Okay, this is, in my mind, just basically misinformation. That is not a dome shape, that is a barrel shape, and so the dome that they're making is not really, I mean, it's not a dome, it's a barrel. They're making it too high to actually follow the science that they're referencing, and this oven is got an enormous opening on it. If you've seen the final from the initial build video, and it's just not going to work that well. This will be a beautiful oven. I think you could make some form of pizza in it, but they're really not following any sort of pizza oven science here.
Floor. The dome shape allows a space for air circulation above the cooking surface, creating high heat and kind of an oven inside an oven. That's why you can cook pizzas so quickly in a brick oven like this. It's going to be a little bit thicker than what we used for our fire brick, so that everything sticks properly as we start to form our dough.
So we're going to do the whole face here, and we're going to do one side for our vertical joint.
So they're using clay bricks, and I don't know what rating they are, but they really look like regular housing bricks, which are not meant to take the kind of heat that is in the oven, and it looks like they're using regular mortar as well. If they were to get this oven up to high enough heat to really cook a pizza, this oven is going to crack and eventually fall down. I would highly recommend not following this set of instructions to build an oven unless it's something decorative that maybe you're going to use once a year. But if you really want to make some pizza, this is not the oven for you.
pointer. But what I'm going to go back and do with this is fill in our voids. You can also use this to pump up your level of your brick to match our dough mark. Not only is this going to make it look good, it's also going to help support our next course when we go up.
Now that we've made some progress, I want to show you how we varied our mortar lines to make the shape of our dough. As you can see at the bottom, it starts out as a little thinner, and as we work our way up, that mortar line gets thicker. So we're almost to the end. And now we're gonna move on to our chimney. So we left an 8x8 square, and then we're gonna go 4 horses high with our brick to build our chimney.
We're just gonna wait a few days, wait for our mortar to dry up. Once our mortar's dry, it's gonna release from our wood. It'll make it a little bit easier to pull our mold out. In a perfect world, this may come out in one piece, but we may be forced to break it down piece by piece.
Once removed, we're cleaning up the inside of the oven of excess mortar and dust. And then it's time to light this thing up.
We're building our fire in the back corner of the oven to allow space for pizzas and optimal heat distribution.
I'm not really sure what to say about that pizza. They never cured the oven, which, because they used mortar and brick, is going to be a problem for them. The oven is not dry yet. It needs to undergo a number of curing fires, and they didn't show any of that in the video. There's also a lot of exposed mortar from the brick that they laid on the top. As the bricks expand and contract, that mortar is going to create dust and it's going to fall down on the pizza. If they make a lot of pizza in this oven, that's going to be a problem for them. Or even, if time passes between making pizza and the seasons, even just with the seasons, even if they're not cooking pizza, there's going to be expansion and contraction among those bricks. So this is not really a great food safe build, I would say. We don't know if the refractory brick at the bottom is food safe. I'm assuming that they're using an appropriate type of brick for that, but they didn't mention that, and that's incredibly important. The techniques they use are great. Their masonry skills are pretty good. Heating a pizza in this oven is going to take a tremendous amount of wood because the entire front side of the oven is open to the elements, so it's going to pull in an enormous amount of air, and that air is going to tend to cool down and actually consume the fire. So I don't really recommend this build if you're wanting to be serious about making pizza. If you're going to do pizza once or twice a year and you're not real concerned with the quality or the genuine nature of that pizza, then this oven might be useful. I think it'd be nice just to have kind of a surface to heat things on and have a fire in your backyard. I mean, I really like the project overall, but this would not be a recommended pizza oven. If you like these videos, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It means a lot to us and really keeps us going. And thanks again for watching from Bitonto Pizza.